let's talk about something that is, well, it's one of the toughest journeys we go on in life, caring for our aging parents, especially when you're trying to do it with your siblings. It can be this incredible thing that brings a family closer, or it can dig up decades of old arguments and tensions. So today, we're going to break down how to work together instead of against each other.
And this quote right here, it just gets to the absolute heart of the matter. If you felt that strain, that frustration, that feeling of being totally alone in this, I want you to know you are not. This is such a common experience, and just understanding the dynamics at play is the very first step to making things better. So here's our game plan. First, we're going to identify and name that strain you're probably feeling. Then, we'll dive into how our own family history can, sabotage the present. We'll even uncover a surprising one, how our parents can sometimes, totally unintentionally, be part of the problem. After that, we'll get into those really tough conversations and map out a clear path to actually working together like a real team.
All right, first up, let's really define what we're talking about here. What is this unique pressure cooker that families find themselves in?
It is so easy to feel like you're the only one carrying all the weight, right? Like you're the only one who really sees what's going on, or maybe even the only one who cares enough to do something. But I'm telling you, these feelings are incredibly common. This is not some personal failure on your part. It's a huge, systemic family challenge.
And here's the thing you've got to understand. The arguments you're having about mom's medications or whether dad should still be driving, they're not really just about those things. Nope. They are often just the tip of the iceberg for much older issues. Old resentments, different ways of communicating, and that big one, the feeling that the work is just not being shared fairly.
So all this pressure often explodes into conflict. But not because of what's happening right now, but because we fall into these predictable old traps that are rooted in our childhoods.
We're going to break down 3 of the biggest ones right now. First, this idea that you shouldn't have to ask for help. Second, seeing your siblings as the exact same people they were 20 years ago. And third, that automatic slide back into your old family roles.
Okay, this first one, it's a real relationship killer. It's that little voice in your head that says, if my brother really cared, he would just offer to take dad to his doctor's appointment. I shouldn't have to ask. And what that does is create this endless cycle of resentment because you're just sitting there waiting for something that might never happen.
But the reality is, your relationship with your parents isn't the same as your sister's. It just isn't. You have decades of different experiences, different memories, and that means you each see your role differently. So what looks like a lack of action on their part might not be a lack of love at all, but just a different perspective on what's needed.
Oh man, we are all so guilty of this one. We remember our brother as being the irresponsible one, or our sister as being the bossy one, and we talk to them today as if they haven't grown up or changed one bit. The truth is, you're not the same person you were when you were 12, and guess what? Neither are they.
And that leads us straight into our third trap. Without even thinking about it, we just slip right back into the roles we had growing up. The responsible one immediately starts organizing everything, the peacemaker is running around trying to smooth things over, and the distant one, well, they stay on the sidelines.
And that's the problem right there. That old dynamic where maybe one sibling took the lead on everything, it's just not fair anymore. It's not effective. As adults, you're supposed to be a team of equals. The goal has to be sharing the load in a way that works for everyone's current lives, not their roles from 30 years ago.
Okay, now for a really surprising factor in all this. The conflict you're having with your sibling, it might not even be starting with the two of you. Sometimes, our own parents can accidentally drive a wedge right between us.
So, has this ever happened to you? You get off the phone with your sister, and you're just baffled. Because the version of mom she just described, the one she just had a cheerful chat with, sounds nothing like the struggling parent you see every single day. Well, there's a reason for that.
See, what often happens is that parents manage the information they give out. They might not want to worry the kid who lives 5 states away, or maybe they're just more honest with the child who's there handling their daily needs. Now, they're not trying to be manipulative, but the end result is the same. You and your siblings are operating with 2 completely different sets of facts.
And what this does is create 2 totally different realities. The sibling who lives nearby, they hear about the falls, the memory lapses, the real, gritty, day-to-day struggles. But the sibling who's far away, they get the, "Oh, everything's just fine" phone call. So when they talk to each other, one thinks the other is overreacting, and the other thinks their sibling is completely in denial. And you know what? They're both wrong, because they're looking at 2 different pictures.
So, knowing all of these pitfalls, how do we actually move forward? Well, it all comes down to having the one conversation that most families will do pretty much anything to avoid.
Talking about end-of-life stuff is hard. It's awkward. It's emotional. But waiting until you are in the middle of a crisis to try and figure out what mom or dad would have wanted, that is a recipe for conflict, guilt, and some serious family trauma. Having this conversation before you need it is truly an act of love.
And here's a really practical way to get started. Instead of a big, scary, direct question, you can use a shared family experience to just open the door a little. It frames the conversation around preventing pain for the family, not just confronting death, which can make it a lot easier to begin. Once that door's open, it's time to get to the essentials. You need to find out, are there legal documents like a living will already in place? Who is the designated person to make medical decisions? In a real crisis, what do they actually want? And this last one is critical. If you siblings disagree, who gets the final say? Getting these answers from them directly, that's the ultimate key to keeping everyone unified.
So how do we take all this and actually put it into practice? It really comes down to one big shift in how you approach the whole situation.
When you really boil it down, the solution is this one idea right here. Every single trap we talked about, from assuming you shouldn't have to ask for help, to falling into old roles, to working with different info, all of it comes from unspoken assumptions. The only way out is to replace those assumptions with direct, honest, and deliberate conversations.
And that brings us right to the end. Look, the goal here isn't to solve everything overnight. That's impossible. It's about taking one small step. So think about it. What is one conversation you can start this week? Maybe it's not the big end-of-life talk just yet. Maybe it's just calling your brother and saying, hey, how are you seeing all this from your perspective? That one question could be the beginning of a whole new way of working together.